in the middle. I will just put it in chat. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming in. This event is covering how to be a better ally to the Asian American Pacific Islander community. It is April 14th at 7 p.m. Let's get it started. So I'm Cole Williams. I'm the Elimination of Prejudice Coordinator for Phi Lambda Phi Fraternity. We're just gonna go ahead and start off with some introductions. Everybody go ahead with your name, your organization, and an overview of the services or programs offered. So we're going to start off with Ashka, who is not here. Okay, let's go in with Monica then.
Hi, everybody. My name is Monica Lamb, and I am the chapter president of Delta Phi Lambda Sorority Incorporated. We are the first Asian interest, but not Asian exclusive sorority on campus. And our sorority strives to better our community by, just spreading Asian awareness, cultural awareness. We empower women leaders through different programs with self-development, leadership. Our national philanthropy is our partnership with the American Bone Health. And this is for education and prevention of osteoporosis. As we recognize, osteoporosis is something that affects mostly women and especially in the Asian community. So that is kind of what we do.
Okay, thank you. Next, Chloe.
Hi everyone, I'm Chloe Pai. I'm the Vice President of Kappa Phi Lambda. We're an Asian interest sorority on campus. Our pillars are sisterhood, service, and cultural diversity. Our national philanthropy is CARE, which fights to eliminate global poverty. And then our local philanthropy is Women Helping Women.
Okay, Pinky.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Pinky. I'm representing Thai UC Student Association today. I just become president of this organization. We don't have a lot of things going on yet, but I'm planning to have something going on in fall and summer as well, so keep an eye on it. In addition to this, I'm also a member of Greek community as well. I'm in Phi Sigma Rho sororities.
Okay, and then last but not least, Natasha.
Hi, my name is Natasha, and I'm the president of VSA, which stands for the Vietnamese Student Association. We've been here consecutively since 2015, and our goals are kind of just to educate not only ourselves, but other community members on the Vietnamese culture and have a very open and inclusive environment for people to not only learn, but discuss the culture. And we very much so focus on uplifting not only those in our community, but also those in Vietnam and those who are Vietnamese American. You definitely don't have to be Vietnamese to join, but we definitely stand for Asian awareness for things that happen against them, such as social justices. But we also want to emphasize that we support a lot of other Asian interest organizations on campus, try to attend a lot of the fundraisers that DPHIL perhaps might hold, as well as PASO and all these other organizations right now.
Okay, so our first section is actually that we're still gonna be in the introduction section. So we are missing one representative right now. If I feel like I can answer that question, if it's simply educational, then I will handle it. But if it's a question regarding the Asian experience, specifically in America, probably shouldn't be speaking to that, and I'll ask it generally to the group. So first one is, what does AAPI stand for? And that is a very simple answer. That is Asian American and Pacific Islander. So if anybody sees that, that's what it stands for. Our next question is for Monica. What current events have increased the need for awareness?
Yes, so since the start of the pandemic, the Asian American community has been just, witnessing a lot of racial and just a lot of hate crimes going on in the community. So just according to like statistics, news sources, there's been around 3,800 like anti-Asian instances that have like occurred like throughout the U.S. And this number is probably underreported because not everybody has been, comfortable going to the authorities, going to the police to share these like instances in fear of, being gaslighted and just like reactions of, the police towards like marginalized communities, as we've seen with others throughout the summer of last year. So just over the course of like the pandemic and everything, and a lot of the larger media sources haven't been really showing these like events or really like sharing these stories until a year later. So we're over a year of like the pandemic, and it seems like larger news sources are just now like highlighting like, hey, like the severity of, Asians like being attacked, just the elders, and this is just, attacking like the vulnerable population. It's just been very heartbreaking to hear. And, again, these numbers are underrepresented for, multiple reasons. And we just have to, continue to educate ourselves, like be aware and, check out like different news sources to, see these things that, that do happen in the community.
And then Natasha, you said that you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, along the lines of like the harassment that's been going on within the Asian community. Personally, like my parents, we own like a nail salon in the mall, and literally right from the get-go, after we got out of lockdown, my parents didn't like report anything, but we did have like moments where people would come in and tell us that we're slow, can't speak English, that our products and services aren't good and stuff like that, despite the fact that they're rushing in like an hour, 2 hours before the mall even opens to get their services done. And it just shows that I think, when it comes down to that, sometimes like business owners or anyone who's like in a situation might not like report it because, when you're coming from such a hard time of like no income for about 2 to 3 months, sometimes you can't even risk it, like for denying a client just because of how rudely they act or how poorly they behave. Just really sad to see this type of things. I'm sure my parents aren't the only business owners that have experienced anything like that, and just eye-opening and reminds us to keep our eyes open.
I'm very sorry that that happened to you and your family, but thank you for sharing. So for our next section is going to be becoming a better ally on campus. So what are microaggressions? Pinky, can you cover that?
Okay, microaggression is words, phrase, or action that communicate bigotry or negative attitudes toward marginalized groups. This can be either intentional or unintentional, but still hurtful to the people. For example, this is from like my personal experience. Someone just like trying to make friends with me and call, oh, you look so exotic. And just like, am I a tiger or something? I mean, like, I know they have good intention, but still like create hurtful feeling to you that like, I'm not a human. I mean, like, it just don't say that even like you have good intention, or like, where are you really from? That's also bad. Like if you say it to international student, you get the answers like, yeah, I'm from Thailand, yeah. But if you say it to like American, like Asian American people, you will create like so much hurtful feeling for them because like they are American like you. Why just like, where are you really from? Like, why? Yeah. Or like there's more resource on the internet that you can look it up. Like I totally get it. Sometimes it's happen without you knowing, but now you know. So like, please be careful with our feelings sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next question is for Natasha. What is cultural appropriation?
Okay, so I was going to answer this, but are we still answering the question, how is different from previous years?
Yeah, I feel like you guys had covered that, so I was
okay.
going to pass off one of Ashka's questions to Chloe. But
Oh, okay, got you. Sorry. But yeah, for cultural appropriation, it's like taking a piece of a culture from a marginalized group or from a minority and using it for your own personal interest without giving credit to that group, as well as maybe not even like identifying or seeing that group as human. I know one of the most controversial things like with like cultural appropriation, some people talk about it. I don't really have, you know, a proper say on it, but like for example, it's like dreadlocks. Some people would say it's a cultural appropriation because some people want certain aspects, certain physical appearances of one group, but then refuses to even call them beautiful or refuses to acknowledge them as a group, and just wears it for their own personal benefit because they think it looks pretty, but they don't think it looks pretty on somebody else who happens to be a different skin color, different race. And then this is definitely not used to educate or connect yourself on other cultures. It's for different, more superficial, artificial reasonings. Another incident that happened, it was a artist. I don't really know her name, which kind of shows how irrelevant she is, but she kind of just blew up in the fact that she wore a Vietnamese garment called an AAPI, which is a very traditional piece of clothing, but she did not wear it with the silk underpants that came with it. So she literally just like wore the top with her underwear and nothing else, and just posed in a very provocative and sexual way, which is definitely misconstruing and taking the Vietnamese culture and the origins of that garment in a very wrong direction. That's just very disrespectful. And I think she even refused to kind of like apologize about it or acknowledge it until multiple people kept like calling her out for it, and she got a lot of hate. But that's just one of the examples of cultural appropriation.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the example. I'm sure that that helps people understand it better. Okay, so Ashka is here. I'm gonna have you go ahead and introduce yourself with your name, organization, and some services that are provided through your organization.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashka Araval. I'm a third-year student here at JC. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Today, I'm repping United Asian Advocates. We are a newer student group on campus. It's been about a year. We've actually been in action, so we kind of came into existence during COVID. As some of you may know, we just have put out some demands to the university, and we're working on them. So, and if you don't know about that, reach out to me. I can talk more about it, explain you what our vision with those demands is. We are a student group focused on empowering marginalized Asian voices on this campus and beyond.
Okay, thank you. So this next question is actually for you, Ashka. So what is the difference between a hate incident versus a hate crime?
That's a great question. I personally will have to.
Wait, Ashka, I think you muted yourself by accident.
Can you guys hear me? My thing is.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Mm-hmm. So I think crime, in my opinion, and I haven't done much research on this particular topic, so thank you for bringing that up. I will definitely read up more about it, but crime for me is something that is directed towards a person. And when you think of hate crimes, that is directed mostly towards a person's identity, and in most cases, marginalized identities that the person possesses. Whereas incidents are, because I feel like when you think of crime, it's done by someone to someone, it's inflicted upon someone, and it's harm caused by a particular individual or a community to someone else. But if you think of an incident, it's something that just happens. But I just was, as you said the question, I was looking it up, and there is a difference between hate crime and hate incidents in the Constitution. So there's like a legal difference as well, but that's what my 2 cents are. Sorry if that's not the best answer.
It's okay. So the difference is that hate incidents are biased attacks, but they aren't legally chargeable as a crime. So these can include verbal attacks, like calling someone a slur or a name. And these are important because they are still harmful to individuals, but they might not have the traditional terms of justice that other incidents. And then also they may underreport or lead to underreporting of actual events that are going on in the country because you can't charge them as a crime. Okay, so our next question is for Monica. What resources are available to minority students on campus?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to interject and return to an initial question that we had. We're talking about hate crimes and, kind of like the differences. One of the questions that was given to us was, how are these crimes like different from like previous years? So when we say that, we mean like, how are hate crimes against the Asian community different from pre-COVID? And I think, we'll just let Chloe kind of like talk about it, and for us to understand that Asian hate crimes, this is not a new thing. Like, this has been ongoing. COVID has really amplified these hate crimes against our community. And, this is something that not everybody has been aware of, that, crimes against our community does happen. And they're just, again, media coverage, like they don't cover it. And with these repeated like attacks throughout the pandemic, it's really, shows that people are, where the headspace is at, and just a lot of like ignorance, like prejudice, like all of that. So hand this off to Chloe.
Yeah, thanks for circling back to that. You actually covered it like super well, so I don't have too much to add, but I just want to say, you mentioned like this isn't really new behavior at all. There was like the immigration ban in the 1800s where people thought all Chinese people had diseases, so they made that ban on Chinese workers. But it's really just like the first time in modern day history where there's such a global movement, like you said, for like anti-API sentiment. But yeah, you covered it pretty well, so don't have too much to add.
Okay, and then how about you answer, what are examples of racism that we might not realize are hurtful or offensive?
So just going back to what Pinky said, probably the best example for this is like microaggressions, just because they're really subtle and can be really nuanced. So sometimes you can't even tell when it's happening. And examples of these are like when Asian people get asked like, where are you from? Like, no, where are you like really from? Or like, you're really articulate for being like this race. Just making like ignorant comments like that, whether they're intentional or unintentional, those are considered microaggressions. So yeah, I would say those are examples that we may not realize, that some people may not realize are hurtful and offensive.
Okay, thank you. So this next one is for Pinky. How can non-Asian students help with these events and trends that are going on?
Okay, I think how can non-Asian student help? I think this is a team effort. Everyone have to come together to solve this problem. First of all, I would say we should educate ourselves about the issue. Like, I totally get it sometimes that like minority have no idea what's going on because like it's not affect them in like daily life and everything. Like, trust me, I totally get it. I growing up as a majority back home. I had more privilege than a lot of people, and I had no idea what's going on, how terrible things can be until like I decided to confront myself and educate myself what's actually happening, and it's actually helped make my eye wide open and see what actually going on. Next, participate and support in AAPI and other minority student organization event like Cole's doing right now. Just like let us come together. Yeah, and I actually love United Asian Advocate. You guys doing good job. I love it. Yeah, thanks for doing good job. And next, we should speak up and help to raise awareness about the issue or what's happening right now. If you like to share posts online, feel free to share. If you don't like, it's fine to support local business or like donate money, or even you see someone who like become a victim of the hate crime, just don't hesitate to just watch them or like let it happen. You should take an action and like come help them. Just be an active citizen. Just don't let everyone be the victim of the hate crime. Yeah, that's basically how can like non-Asian student help the API community.
Okay, thank you. That was that was a great answer. It had a lot of information. Okay, so our next question is for Natasha. What is restorative justice?
So by definition, restorative justice refers to solutions that aim to repair the harm caused by a crime rather than just solely punishing the perpetrator or perpetrators. I think in this case, I think for Stop Asian Hate, definitely people need time to grieve and absorb what happened and realize like what harm has been caused to their community. But it's really bad to kind of just focus on that rather than looking for solutions. So yes, like punish the people if it was like a very serious crime or incident. But even when it comes to talking to your own family or to your friends, if you hear something that's a little racially charged that they might not have realized, or something that's just kind of ignorant that they didn't realize either, kind of what Chloe was talking about, you call them out on that stuff. You know, you call them out when they say things like the R word, the N word, maybe Asian slurs. I'm not going to say the slur for Asian, which is like, it starts with a C. I'm not going to say it. But yeah, definitely it starts from small things like that to kind of what Pinky was saying, supporting your local businesses and promoting kind of events that have happened, like bringing light to them. Like just because a news outlet hasn't brought light to it, there's other ways to take action into your own hands and educate those within your community, especially through social media, which is, I'm sure, how a lot of people heard about this event. Just using platforms like that is great ways to kind of like act against the hate, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. So our next few questions are going to tackle being a better ally online, which is a good jumping off point since Natasha just mentioned social media. So our first question is for Ashka, and it is, what is performative activism?
That's a great question. So performative activism by definition is a form of activism used to increase one's social capital or personal gain than genuine support towards a movement, issues, or causes. One of the biggest things that we see when we look at performative activism, especially in the college community, is people retweeting stuff, using hashtags, without actually doing the research and understanding the historical white supremacist practices that their institutions and sometimes their own selves kind of continue to perpetuate. So before you retweet hashtag Stop Asian Hate, before you talk about Black Lives Matter, understand, read their stories, understand the history, and understand the entire context of it, not just parts of it. Because right now with this information age, I feel like there's times where we get so much information that we just get swamped into it. But yeah, that is performative activism, and we're seeing a lot of it right now.
Okay, thank you. This one isn't specific for anyone, but how do we go beyond simply posting things on our stories and actually creating change?
I can say something about that. So definitely I've seen within organizations, if you guys happen to be like in them, if there's like opportunities for you to volunteer to present for something like this, for an actual event rather than just making a statement, that's one great way to actually go beyond just posting something about it. It shows that you care, you put in some research, you're willing to talk about it and show your passion and compassion. But also I did want to note something, that just because you don't post on social media does not reflect how you support the movement. I think that is just discourages a lot of people when they hear things like that, like, oh, because you didn't post about it, like you're not in support of these people. Nobody really knows what you are doing outside of social media. Social media shows only a very surface level part of your life. And there's things that you could be doing outside of it, like talking to your parents, talking to your friends, talking to random people that you meet, or going to events where you rally together and support each other. Those are all things you can do just that go beyond posting things that people may not know about, but it's okay. Because at the end of the day, your intentions are there and in the right place, and you're doing actions for the better good rather than just like kind of for PR or looking good in other people's eyes. Yeah.
I'd like to interject and add something, if that's okay. When you look at activism, usually we go for the impact than the intentions, because sometimes, and in most cases, the intentions are always in the right place. So looking at the impact that people are having with what you're doing, whether it's creating a post or talking to your parents, look at that. Look at how, as an ally, whatever you're doing is impacting the community, whether it's for good or for bad. So sort of keeping yourself on that critical scale and looking at your actions critically, and not just, again, falling into this whole performative act of activism. And again, if you are a UC student, sign our petition. That's a great way to be an ally and support us.
Okay, this next question is Monica, and it's actually a great jumping off point from what Ashka just ended with. So a lot of times we do see petitions all over social media, and while those are great and they can certainly further agendas and help bring an end to certain issues, specifically when you have a target in mind, but what can we do beyond signing petitions? Because sometimes they aren't as effective and they kind of stay in the digital sector. And that one's for Monica.
Yeah, so something that the community can do besides signing petitions is really being able to educate yourself, like being able to reach out and, do your own research, reach out to, specifically that community, be able to talk to people and understand like, the experiences that they go through and what are some of the action steps, like actionable items that you could do to help, help keep the community, protected, how to like advocate for people. And really having that open communication is really important. I think that we live in a day and age, as everybody has like kind of said, that there's a lot of information out there, and which is good, but also there is misinformation that is going around. So it's really important for people, allies, and also like people within the community to be open to having conversations, these tough conversations on like, hey, like what's going on, and what can we do to like support ourselves, like how can people support us, and just be open to receiving new information, because like these are like with advocacy there's going to be a lot of like uncomfortable topics that come up, and self-reflection amongst like different people that may not experience that what you experience. And with that being said too, like those marginalized communities aren't necessarily it's not necessarily their job to educate you at the same time. So really be able to do that work on your own to like educate yourselves. And if you do find people in the community that are open to having those conversations, that's going to be like a really good step. Being able to listen to the stories, like anecdotes, like Natasha had shared earlier today. Her own family has like witnessed these like harassment from people that are going to like their nail salon. So just really being able to receive this information, and like having the intention is like really important, but at the end of the day the impact is something that's going to be lasting. So just be able to evaluate yourself, and like what is how are your actions or inactions like affecting the community, and yeah, and that sort of thing. And I guess another example is so I'm like part of Delta Phi Lambda, and in the Greek community we recently had an incident where a former member just said really horrendous things about another like marginalized community. And this is taken like being our community is taking this like very seriously. We just had a meeting last night to kind of like discuss how can fraternity and sorority, like how can we have these conversations on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. How can we make our community more welcoming, and make sure that everybody is feeling protected? Because at the end of the day, allyship is not it's not just one person's responsibility. It's everybody has to collectively work towards that cause, like work to make sure this environment is equitable, like inclusive of all people of identities.
Yes, thank you so much. So our next section is about being a better ally in the community, and that's a great connector with Monica bringing up what happened recently in Greek life. So there have been some recent events in Clifton. Sometimes it feels like these are national issues and they aren't really happening exactly where you are, but unfortunately they are happening in the UC area. One example is Asian restaurants in the area have been getting phone calls where somebody will order a large amount of food and then refuse to pick them up or go pay for it. If anybody else has any examples of recent events that have happened in the UC area, please go ahead and share them just so we all know what's going on.
I mean, I think for the incident if you're referencing, yeah, like not only did they do that, the restaurant was terrible. They said some pretty like gruesome and like horrendous things, like, oh, like not only did we not order it, but we don't eat dogs, like kind of making very assumptuous and very stereotypical comments like that. I don't know. I think that not only within like the Clifton area, I think just within like other like states too, and just like in Ohio, you hear a lot about stuff like, I think everyone kind of heard about that grandma that got beat up in New York. I mean, good for her that she put the guy in the hospital and she didn't end up having to go to the hospital, like go grandma, but like definitely unfortunate that people think that these type of situations or actions that they make are in any way justifiable or like valid to do so just because of their own like thoughts on that race.
I would just like to add on real quick that there are incidents that have happened on our own campus as well. Trigger warning, of course. Step away if you don't feel like continuing this conversation. These are difficult conversations, so please take care of yourself. There was an incident that happened with United Asian Advocates where we had people Zoom bomb our call and spew hateful comments, anti-Asian, anti-Black, anti-Semitic comments in the call. There was an incident that happened at CCM where a professor mocked a Chinese student's accent in the same week. So while we're being critical of what's happening around the country, we do need to look at the white supremacist systems that our university still upholds and stand against those.
I'm sorry that that happened to both your organization and the students at CCM, but thank you for bringing it up and bringing it to everyone's awareness. So our next question is for Chloe. What can you do when you see a hate incident or hate crime occurring?
When you see a hate incident occurring, I would say don't be afraid to take action, but try not to escalate the situation, because if not handled carefully, it can escalate into like a hate crime. You can try to get other bystanders involved, help the individual leave the situation, or offer emotional support to them. In a more like common instance where someone just makes an offensive comment or you like witness a microaggression, definitely don't be afraid to call the person out and just try to help them understand why their actions are wrong and hurtful. And just going back to, sorry, it's kind of like a tangent, but going back to what Ashka said about, what happened with UAA, they, I know you guys like started a petition for the university, and I think that's really important because if you really look at it, our university isn't really supportive of, we had this conversation yesterday, they're not really supportive of, promoting diversity as well as they could be. For example, like the Office of Ethnic Programming and Services, they are really like the only office for supporting or promoting diversity on our campus, and they barely get any funding, and they have a lot of turnover in their staff, and I've just heard from them they like don't really get any support from the university. So yeah, I think like petitions like UAA is doing are like very important on like a university wide like level.
I want to add on to that too. So for that talk that Monica was talking about last night, that was happening between like the Quad Council, like group organizations, they were talking a lot about how like in general when it comes to just like being more like aware and educated on minorities and learning how to prevent yourself from saying some really rude racial things. Like we have all of these like classes that are available to us that the university has to their disposal, yet they don't make it required, or even for staff, they don't make it required for them to kind of properly educate themselves. So it's like they have everything. They technically would need to, pay more to these staff, and if anything, they could probably help combine within the EPS. But I think it definitely comes down to whether or not the university wants to make that kind of like image for themselves. I think they definitely worry about like their public image a lot, especially to incoming students that maybe that come from scholarships, either like from other states or from like sports scholarships. it's just unfortunate to see that they kind of value that more than properly educating their incoming students or current students or even staff.
Thank you all for bringing up so many issues. So our next question is.
I had something else to
Oh,
add.
go right ahead. Don't let me cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, and just to add on to like what Natasha said, you know, during this Greek meeting that we had last night, yeah, we're just saying like we don't feel like the university is really prioritizing diversity and inclusion. You know, they, you know, say like outwardly like, oh, you know, we welcome everybody, and you know, talking about, you know, all our numbers every year, like our enrollment numbers keep going up, but what are you doing to actually support those students? I've had multiple conversations with different staff from various departments of the university, and just the student affairs like sector, it's just the turnover rate is just so high. There's just not enough staff to actually, you know, provide resources and support students of like different identities. You know, it's not just Asian students, but others as well. And it's just really unfortunate because, you know, the students are here to get an education and they should feel safe enough to be here and not have to worry like, oh, like what if I get discriminated? What if, you know, there's an incident that happens? That like there's not even a like a multicultural center at the university. Like a lot of universities have these, and you know, be able to, you know, provide staff and resources for students, you know, just kind of give them a space. But for, you know, the Asian students on our campus, like we have student organizations, which is great. Those are student led, but there's not a centralized space, again, where staff can actually, you know, properly support them. There is, you know, the ethnic programs office, which is, you know, it's a good, you know, office, but it's, you know, they're also, there's not really a single staff member there that is, you know, able to support like all of these students. It's just an office, not a, you know, a center for all students here. So yeah, it's just like we're realizing that like students have to like put more pressure on the university to, you know, really prioritize like these other things. It's not just, you know, we shouldn't just be focusing on the athletes and like having like the high enrollments. It's like, what are you doing with the students, like all these different identities? Like what are you actually doing to support them?
Thank you. No, you all students at UC deserve better, and specifically minority students and ethnic minority students haven't been receiving the same level of assistance, and you guys deserve better. Okay, so next question is for Pinky. How can we assist the AAPI community in Cincinnati?
Like I mentioned before, just like take an action when you witness a hate crime, support local Asian-owned business, and like try not to be microaggressive. Actually, just like guys, just have an empathy, put yourself in our shoes, and treat people the way you want to be treated. That's basically everything. Just like treat people the way you want to be treated. If you don't want to like witness something like that, just don't do that to other people. That's just like that's all. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I agree. We need more kindness in the world. Okay, so going off of what you said, we did put together a list of Asian-owned businesses in the Cincinnati area. I'm dropping the link to that in the chat. It is broken up by different types of business. So we've got some alterations and dry cleaning, Asian markets, more like grocery stores, and then restaurants, and then some other ones too. So everybody go take a look at that, because COVID's been hurting every small business, but specifically minority-owned businesses have been hit a lot harder. Okay, so our next section is going to be our last one. It's just going to be important issues. So if anybody wants to talk about issues that they feel haven't been covered yet in the discussion, first we're going to go off with Pinky, because you had brought up what is going on in Myanmar and Thailand, and you can kick us off.
Okay guys, this happened like maybe like across the world, and it might not be like really popular story in the USA. But speaking of hate crime and like human rights crisis and stuff, I would like to mention about the hashtag what's happening in Thailand and what's happening in Myanmar. I'm not gonna try to like make it long. I'm gonna try to summarize it. So like basically, first one, what happened in Thailand? Like 7 years ago, there was a coup d'etat supported by the royal family in Thailand, and the military army just like took our democracy, and right now we just like doesn't have democracy, doesn't have freedom of speech or like human rights. And the coup d'etat didn't happen just once. It's actually happened. Like, guys, I'm 20 years old and it's happened twice in my life. And so like it's happened like many times before. So after that, a lot of people came out to protest, and like they even expressed their opinion in the internet, like we all do, about the government and the royal family, about how wrong about this thing. But like they got arrested and thrown into a prison or went missing. Some activists just like got abducted and just like they murdered him, put him in a cement and threw him in a river. And that's not only one, that's like many cases that happening. And also they have been using like brutal violence on the protester in Thailand, which is like very terrible. And we, like I mentioned, we can publicly express our opinion about this thing or we'll get in trouble. Like I'm in the USA, I can say whatever I want because like they're not gonna come arrested me, but like when I go back home, I have no idea. And a lot of people back home, my friends, my family, they just live, they're like us, but they don't have like human right or even like freedom of speech. Like we all here, we can express our opinion, we can call out about stuff, we can say anything, and we don't have to go to jail or get arrested or like even die from that. It's just like that's real bad. Okay, I'm not gonna try to bore you. Next, what's happening in Myanmar? First of all, West Myanmar. Myanmar is also in Southeast Asia. It's up north from Thailand. Yeah. And what's actually happening on like 1st February, there was a coup d'etat by the Myanmar military armies. I forgot to mention what's coup d'etat. Coup d'etat is when the military just like came in, take over the power from the rightfully government, and they just like, boom, I'm the biggest guy in the country, and we don't have right or anything anymore. Yeah, and this one is the same thing. A lot of Myanmar people, Myanmar citizens, all type of occupation, all ages came out on protest, like on the internet and like on the street. And a lot of people got arrested. They even like murder them on the street. It's a big massacre. More than 500 people has been killed. Thousands of them got arrested. College students, even like 3 years old kids, 70 years old, elderly people, or even pregnant women just like got murdered by the like military coup. Like I have a friend who live in Myanmar. Like he's like us. He went to school in the USA. He also was in like Greek community as well. He has bright future waiting for him. He went back home. He went to protest and he got arrested and he went missing for weeks right now. It's just like it's hit different, guys, when like this issue, it just hit different when it's happened to someone who you actually know. It's a real human being that's like, it's a real human being. How can you do this to someone? How can you just like abduct him, throw him in a jail, and like we have no idea if he's still alive? And like they also have like financial problem in Myanmar because like they don't have money. The military coup just like took all the money. So like right now I'm helping my friend in Myanmar doing fundraising project, raising money toward it's the GoFundMe project. This money gonna go to the like let me look the name. I'm sorry guys, I'm a bit freaking out. This low-key is emotional for me.
Yeah, no, don't be sorry. That definitely is
Yeah,
emotional. It's your own friend.
I'm no activist, but like it's happened to people who I know and I want to speak up. Yeah, the money go to the Citizen of Burma Award organization. The money gonna be continue nationwide protest, the civil disobedience movement, and like go to the roughly government in Myanmar to help them fight back to the military coup. And also, I'm successfully convinced Phi Sigma Rho to help me do the bingo board to raise money toward this cause. So like, if you guys have time, please check it out. Just like help us share, help us donate, or like if you don't like to share on the internet, that's fine too about this thing. Just sometimes if you this conversation just come up, just like talk about it, tell your friends, tell your family, raise awareness, spread the word, give them some spotlight what's happening in Thailand and what's happening in Myanmar. We are human, we all deserve to have human rights. We all have we deserve to have like freedom of speech. No one deserves to die or get arrested from just like we have different opinion, or we want better quality of living for us, for like or for like our generate for the next generation. That just like that's something they don't have, and we're trying to make it happen right now. So like please help share, please support. Thank you for giving me spotlight to talking about this.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I feel like it's something that isn't talked about a ton on social media, and the issues aren't going to go away on their own. So we need to put pressure on the government, and we need to raise awareness. Thank you for bringing that up and bringing up your experience with your friends. Does anybody else have issues that they feel aren't talked about?
I can go.
Go ahead, Asha.
Go ahead, Natasha.
Oh, I was just gonna say, not this week, but the week after that, VSA is actually having another discussion on anti-AAPI hate, where there's going to be some thoughts, not only from us, but also from the general body members or audience that come. And one of the issues that we were going to talk about was trying to have a civil conversation with people who may not be like-minded, because that's very important. I think it's great that we have this conversation right here, discussion, where people who are like-minded are here to not only educate themselves and like learn about things that they might not have known before, and learn about more resources, but also learn about how they can like be an ally. But I think another important issue is realizing that we need to be a little bit more inclusive and maybe less aggressive towards those who might want to learn. I think that when we throw around where it's like kind of like white supremacy and stuff like that, like sometimes some people, they kind of feel like hurt from that. Obviously, this conversation is focused on AAPI people, but I think it's important that we kind of be inclusive to those that want to be allies that might not even be AAPI or people of color, because just the overall aggressiveness might not be a very welcoming kind of environment for them to try and show their support. So we're trying to have more of an open conversation at that event, which is like, I think, an important thing that we need to all realize sometimes. Yeah, but to be kind of conscientious of everyone's race and color.
Okay, thank you. Ashka?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that event, Natasha. I would love to join, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this call who would love to join as well. And also thank you so much, Pinky, for bringing this important discussion to us. As Cole mentioned, it is not talked about at all. I personally was very unaware, so thank you for sharing. It's very difficult, and we appreciate you. And just to echo what everything has been said, and also chat a bit about United Asian Advocates' demands. We just had our first meeting with President Pinto on April 13th. No, never mind. It was April 8th. And he just released a statement regarding a meeting, and the statement kind of shows how things are going great, but they're not really going great. Monica just recently mentioned a couple of, and I'll just read out the demands. So we have 6 demands. The first is a no tolerance statement delivered by President Pinto, sent through the president@uc.edu email address, denouncing acts of racism, prejudice, bias against all marginalized communities. Demand number 2 is a university-wide accessible bias reporting tool moderated by the Office of Equity and Inclusion based on the Arts and Sciences College model. This tool must be highlighted in the syllabus as well as during all orientations. Demand number 3 is invest time into the staff of EPS by recruiting, hiring, and retaining at least one individual who has experience in supporting Asian identifying students on this campus. Number 4, recruit, hire, and retain at least one qualified individual with experience in working with Asian mental health care and racial trauma at University of Cincinnati Counsel and Psychological Services. Demand number 5, develop an anti-racist module similar to alcohol awareness and sexual harassment trainings, and include that in the trainings that students, that all incoming and first-year students, first-year and transfer students have to complete. And last but not the least, include a multicultural center in the next lives year expansion plans. Sorry, I just went really quickly through them, but reach out to me if you have more questions about these demands in specific. But something that I did want to talk about is the meeting and how that went. So in that meeting, we were told that a lot of these plans are under action, that a multicultural center is on the way, that anti-racist module training is on the way, that increasing the curriculum of sensitivity training is on the way, including that in the curriculum of each college is on the way. But the problem that higher administration right now fails to understand is that even though it is on the way, people will come and graduate and have bad experiences. These solutions need to be urgent. University of Cincinnati has had the capacity of creating things like COVID Watch and things like the COVID testing centers overnight. Those things were made, they happened overnight. They recruited so many staff members. And at the same time, UC has the capacity to create a multicultural center. They are revamping the law school building. They have the money. So there's a lot of research that we've put behind these demands. If you want to go and take a look at that, I've dropped the website link in the chat. It's super easy, unitedasianadvocates.com. Read through them, talk to us about issues that you're facing, whether you're an Asian student or not. We're here to advocate for all Bearcats, and we can work together to create a better UC.
Thank you for sharing all of those. Those demands they shouldn't even be on the table. They should have been accepted years ago by the previous administration. But thank you for fighting for all Asian students and bringing that to everyone's attention. Okay, so I'm gonna just ask Monica, Chloe, if you have anything that you two would like to add. Otherwise, we are getting close to 8 p.m. It's been an hour. Or if anybody has any other topics that they'd like to bring up or any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Yeah, so I can try to add something real quick. Again, just, do your due diligence, look over that petition that was presented from, United Asian Advocates. There's a lot of, good changes that, our campus needs. And I guess to get into more personal story. So not to get into all the details, but in the fall of 2019, our sorority was falsely, there was a false claim that we were hazing our members, and the conduct officer was very much biased against us. Most of our sisters are Asian identifying, and we all had similar testimonies just to back up hey, these events did not happen. We had paperwork, we had advisors, all of these activities that were claimed, they're false. And what we're doing, we weren't putting anybody in harm's way. We had open communication. But unfortunately, the conduct officer was just very much set in his ways, and was very adamant on getting us penalized in some sort of way. So we essentially had to choose between probation or suspension of our sorority. And we're already a small sorority to begin with, on campus, and seeing that staff member treat us this way and talk to our members this way is very disheartening. It's very just a really traumatizing process. So when this this all unfolded, we had to choose again between admitting that we did do this, we're on probation, or that we're suspended if we spoke up about this. So even talking about it, I'm kind of getting a little triggered again. But yeah, this stuff, we do need to do a better job of keeping our students, everybody safe on campus, and staff members should not be discriminating against different people, and it just shouldn't have happened.
I'm so sorry that happened to you and your sisters, but thank you for bringing it up. Right.
I guess I can just add add something really quick. I just want to go back on the topic of like being active on social media. I just want to say that it's definitely fine to take a break because like especially now there's a lot of stuff going on and it's definitely important to be educated on what's happening, but it can be really like mentally draining to be on social media that much and just like keep seeing all this negative stuff that's happening in the world. I know for myself, I might take like a couple of days, like a break, just because it's a lot just to take in. But yeah, definitely feel free to like step away at any time. Just like take some time for yourself.
Okay. Thank you all for speaking, and thank everybody else in attendance for showing up. These issues aren't going to go away unless we work to fix them, and education is one of the first steps that people can take. This will be recorded if you came in a couple minutes late or you want to share it to somebody else. It will be both on our chapter YouTube and on our chapter Instagram TV. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or anybody that was speaking here today. We did have representatives from United Asian Advocates, Delta Phi Lambda, Kappa Phi Lambda, Thai UC Students Association, and the UC Vietnamese Student Association. Okay, thanks again to everybody. Have a wonderful night.